I am who I am. Look, to wear a t-shirt like that, you know how much power you got to know? You know how self-secure you got to be? Brothers and sisters, I'm honored to introduce you to our brother, Sister Smith. I'll see you up there, my queen. What did you want to say as we're bringing on our king, Brother Lee Jasper?
Oh, sorry, I was just applauding. Apologies.
Oh, okay. No, keep applauding then. Keep applauding, sister. Brother Lee Jasper, my king. How are you doing, soldier?
I'm doing very well. I'm delighted to be with you. I thought I'd watched the whole show, and I'm really glad I did because I got a lot of food and a lot of energy. So congratulations. A brilliant show.
Oh, thank you, my king. And again, we thank you for your patience and your humility, brother. But as people are still coming onto the show, Lee, as I said earlier on, man, you are, without trying to embarrass you, brother, you are a living legend amongst us, brother. You wear your emotions, your ideology, your spirituality. You wear it on the sleeves of your shirt, brother. You don't hide it. You're a freedom fighter who accepts the mission and accepts maybe the pain that may go with it, because people see you and they see you all over the country and in fact all over the world, brother. But I know to be a Lee Jasper, there has to be pain and struggle that goes up. Most people just don't appreciate, but you wear it and you move with it, brother. How have you been, my king?
Yeah, I've been very well, and I'm blessed. We're all good in the family, and good health and strong vigor. So yeah, we're more than delighted to be here.
All right, now, brother, you know we're gonna be going into some fiery subjects soon, brother Lee. Okay, very soon we're gonna get some fiery subjects, brother. But before we get into the main thrust of you, brother Lee, I'm gonna drop something with you, King.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop you just 1 or 2 pictures. I don't want you to think about the picture. I want you for 1 minute to say whatever comes into your heart when you see these pictures, okay, brother?
Okay.
Don't try to politicize it. Don't try to think it deep. Don't try to go too deep with us. Say what's on your heart based on that picture for 1 minute. Here we go.
Love.
Talk, brother. You got a minute. Talk to us.
Love. That's my dad in Jamaica.
Tell us, King. Tell us about your dad.
He's oh man, he's 92. He's still agile. Found him up a mango tree when we visited him last. Grows all his own food. Self-sufficient. First black man to own a club in Manchester and an off license way back in the 50s. And he's just such an inspiration to us all and the family. You know, often people say, oh, you're light skinned, you must be half caste. Both my parents are that complexion. And it just shows you, please don't make assumptions about when you see people, because you don't know. This is a bona fide Jamaican, as you can see in Jamaica. But yeah, I'm delighted with my dad. What can I say?
Did you say Manchester, brother? What part of Manchester?
Cheetham Hill is where he opened the first club. It was called the Carib. Now we're on the Windrush theme. So it reflects that. Well, it was the Carib Club in Cheetham Hill. And you're talking about a club down there in the early 60s. So incredible pioneer.
Beautiful, my king. It just shows how small this world is, brother, because my father and my mother, they were based in Manchester too.
There you go.
Look at that, man. So I may have seen your dad.
Yeah.
You know, Rob shows it. I don't even know that was your dad, my king.
That's my great grandson there as well.
Oh, beautiful. King, come, what's on your mind?
Oh, listen, you know, when we're talking about Windrush pioneers.
Come on, teach me.
Oh man, listen, these two, you know, these were, you know, when you're growing up as a young man and you can't see any black faces on TV, and all of a sudden in the 60s and the 70s, you begin to see these guys. And you know what? They were in comedy shows and this, that, and the other. But I used to see them on All Saints Road in Mangrove at 10 o'clock at night, you know, sitting around with the Trevor Carters and the Darcus Howes and the Layla Howe and the Barbara Beese and Frank Critchlow's, talking deep politics and putting their money and their effort and support behind things like the Mangrove. This is where I'll give you your props Trinidad brought the intellectual capacity
Come on,
to
Brother
the
Lee,
struggle
I'm not lying.
and led the Black Power movement. But it was the Jamaicans that were the Marine Corps that cleared the streets of profound racists, so that everybody could come and walk here in peace and safety. That wasn't the case back when they came, but they made it so that people understand you couldn't randomly attack black people and expect to get away with it. So Jamaicans were the Marine Corps, Trinidadians were the intellectual and almost cultural high priests of the movement. But these two, Popcorn and my beautiful sister there, oh man, I've been so blessed in my life to meet these people and just to sit at their feet and just eat up the wisdom.
Come on, King. Come, we're loving this, Brother Lee.
Oh, people will not know, but we campaigned for the abolition of apartheid under South Africa. And when Nelson Mandela was free and he was coming to the United Kingdom, because we campaigned so vigorously to abolish apartheid, the ANC leadership, which was exiled in the UK outside of apartheid, said in negotiations with we, when Mandela comes and he comes to Britain, you're going to be the first person to host a meeting with him. And at 8:30 at Claridge's in 1993, just after he was released, Nelson and Winnie came to this event, and I hosted it under the National Black Caucus, which was the equivalent of Black Lives Matter movement today, back in the day. I've never been so proud in my life as that day. Brother, that was a breakfast meeting at 8 a.m. People were queuing at 6 a.m. I never seen black people turn up so early for anything in my life. Queue around the block. I was delighted. And you know what happened 30 odd years later? I was responsible for making sure that the statue of Mandela went in to Parliament Square. And we had a huge battle against Westminster Council, who didn't want us to put it anywhere. And I led the project. Not only did I lead the project, brother, but on the day of the unveiling of the statue, I was there with Mandela. I had breakfast with Mandela and Gracia Machel. That's the wife of Samara Machel, an African revolutionary who was murdered by the Portuguese. And his wife went on, after Winnie and Nelson divorced, his wife went on to marry Nelson Mandela. And I sat that morning, that summer morning, and had breakfast with them. And that was not the only association, because I brought his daughter over, Zinzi Mandela. I brought Zinzi Mandela over. I brought Attila Shabazz over here. I brought Atal Nkrumah, the son of Gamal Nkrumah, the son of Kwame Nkrumah.
Woo!
I brought over Yolanda King. I brought over the grandson of Gandhi and the daughter of Malcolm X, and put them all on one panel.
Oh, stop. Shut the front door.
Put them on one panel for Black History Month.
Shut the front door.
And we called it the Legends Conference. It was like church.
Wow.
When Attila Shabazz spoke about her father in that meeting, and Yolanda King. And you know what blessed me on that day, brother, is that they said to me, nobody has ever thought of bringing us together before. And I was astounded, because I thought, well, in America and around the world, surely this is like normal. And they said, this is the first time our families have been together on one platform. It was, I've been so blessed. It's unbelievable, brother.
Brothers and sisters, if you're feeling this section, tonight's going to get hot. Understand this. Tonight is going to get, but this is just the introduction. This is just the prelude. This is the starter. The main meal hasn't started yet, brothers and sisters. This is Lee Jasper just entering in to the platform. Lee Jasper.
Yes, well, that's when he was announced as leader. Jeremy Corbyn and my sister
Love
there.
that man. Love that man. I don't care what people say. Love that man.
And that is Zita Holborn, the chair of Black Activists Rising Against the Cuts, another powerful sister. And she and I were at the launch of Jeremy's leadership campaign. to when he was standing to be leader. And again, he's somebody I've known for 30 or 40 years. You know, there are very few MPs that you can call, and even if somebody's not your constituent, their constituency, that they'll try and do something to help you.
Teach.
Jeremy's one of them. Ken Livingstone's one of them. You know, these are people who, back when we were in the mangrove and we'd need to call an MP or a local councillor, and he was leader of Islington Council at the time, he would get out of his bed and go to police stations, not just make a phone call for you.
Wow.
He actually go to police stations and say, I want to see this prisoner because I believe he's been battered or whatever it was. So love to Jeremy Corbyn, man.
Pure love, pure love.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just the John Pilger man himself, the journalist that leaves no stone unturned, living legend in his own lifetime. If you haven't read John Pilger's work, boy, you're missing out on a substantive analysis. You know, this guy, he doesn't fear, he doesn't favor, he writes as he sees it. He's one of the most radical writers in the world, covering issues from, you know, the desecration and genocide of Amazonian tribes to Palestinian liberation to, you know, China's role in Africa. This guy is a serious political journalist. Serious.
Brilliant.
Now, this is my political godfather and hero, because Al Sharpton, I brought him over in the early 90s because I needed to shed some international light on some racism which saw 5 black boys jailed for the murder of a prostitute in Cardiff, for which they could not possibly have been guilty. And the press and the jury system and the society, everybody had condemned these boys. And I knew they were innocent, went to Cardiff, and when I got there, I saw how disempowered the community was. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I need to bring an international spotlight to the situation. I just remembered the teachings of Malcolm, which said, look, if you're going to make your case all about domestic racism, instead of raising it up to the issue of international human rights, then you're doing a disservice to the struggle. And so I called Reverend Sharpton. I brought him over here for the march against Roland Adams's murder. The young man that died before. Nobody remembers Roland Adams. He was murdered before Stephen Lawrence.
No, Baba Lee, pause it one there. Remember you said, say that name one more time.
Roland Adams.
Samira, what have you got to say on this?
You may not recognize who I am, Brother Lee. Auntie Audrey is my aunt. Roland Adams was and is my cousin.
There you go.
For those who may not know about Roland Adams, who is Roland Adams? What happened to him?
My gran is in the background saying that they don't talk about my cousin. So yeah, sorry, my gran is interjecting. Sorry. Grandma, do you want to come over? She said,
come over, Grandma.
So sorry, everyone. So Roland Adams was and is my cousin. He was murdered exactly 1 month before his 16th birthday. He was murdered by a gang of white young adults and I'm not too sure exactly about that, but the interesting thing is that if it were the other way around, that there was a gang of black youths, then what they would have done is probably arrested all, and sorry, my grandma's just going off. They would have arrested all, and they probably all would have been charged. But instead, what happened with my cousin's murderers is that out of the whole entire gang, there was a ridiculous number who chased him. And at the time, Nathan, who's also my cousin, his younger brother, they were at a youth center and they were chased. They only eventually arrested and I believe jailed one out of the gang. And from memory, it was at least 10, if not more, white youths and young adults that they were chased by. And these individuals were known in the community. At the time, it was Thamesmead. So my aunt, Auntie Audrey, is on here, I believe, and my uncle Richard. They didn't live in the area, but we didn't have cell phones back in those days. And they were at a youth center, Roland and Nathan, not an area that they really, really frequented. But anyway, they were at a bus stop making their way home. And that's when they were chased and were murdered. And Nathan didn't actually realize that, I'm doing my best to be very, very diplomatic, but that these murderers, doesn't matter if you were the one who used the knife or not, they are murderers. And he didn't actually realize that, unfortunately, Roland was caught by this mob and was murdered.
Wow.
And you know, that's an association with the family that I've had from that time till this, really, and I've seen the devastation that has caused right throughout, and it is horrific. And I brought Sharpton over to bring international attention. And I remember the day that I met him when he first came here, and the Daily Mail French front page was "Race Hate Preacher from Hell comes to UK."
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, and my view was, you know, that he's exactly the kind of person I needed. And he came over, and every time I called in subsequent to that, diarrhea allowed, he came over. So, you know, my association with Sharpton goes well. And I tell you why I like Reverend Sharpton, because they tried to finish him.
Yes.
They tried to out that brother over an incident. It's too long to go into now, but you'll remember the Bedford-Stuyvesant incident and the Jewish community down there, and Twana Browning and those sorts of things. They tried to crush him, and he was crushed. And that brother rebuilt himself.
Phoenix.
And 30 years later, he's a senior advisor to Barack Obama in the White House. That the president isn't making a move without calling Reverend Sharpton to ask which way the wind is blowing. I mean, I just have to hold my hat to him. And, you know, not only is he a great individual, not only is he generous with his time, but he's the epitome of Black excellence insofar as he understands the need to make us have a strong economic base if our politics are going to remain independent. And he's managed to do that. Well, this is my brother in arms, Peter Herbert, founding chair of Society of Black Lawyers. He's a QC, he's a barrister, he was a part-time judge. The Ministry of the Justice tried to crucify him because he publicly stated that the criminal justice system is institutionally racist, and he defended the attempt. People might remember that the previous mayor of Tower Hamlets was called Lutfer Rahman. He's just been re-elected now after 12 years. And when he was first elected 12 years ago, they launched an inquiry to say that there was electoral fraud. There was no electoral fraud. Peter Herbert called that report, right, like some colonial inquisition. And it was a salutary lesson for us to learn. Even the Bangladeshi community, fully organized, fully independently funded, fully capacitized to turn out the vote, still had democracy ripped away from them on the basis of racism and the oppression of others. Peter spoke out about it, and the Ministry of Justice tried to discipline him. And he was in a 2-year fight, which he beat them. And they were forced to pay massive compensation. Chair of the Society of Black Lawyers, fierce radical, outspoken, ethical, committed, now living in Kenya in the motherland with his wife and children. He He jogs on the Serengeti. He watches the African sun dip into that sunset.
Stop it. Stop it,
And
Lee.
he is living the dream.
And the very last one, Lee, the very last one.
This, yeah, you're going to make me cry now. This is my queen.
Come on, say that one more time.
This is my wife. You know, we've been together now 35 years. We have 9 children. I know she don't look like that. So we have 9 children, and here we're receiving an award. But trust me when I say that I couldn't do anything that I do without her full and consistent and, you know, unparalleled support. She's literally the rock on which I build everything that I can do. There's one thing about Black leadership space. If your home base is not solid, you're going to fall in that public space. You have to have a solid home relationship, a positive home relationship, a strong familial relationship. You need to be a partnership. You need to be committed. You need to be empathetic. You need to be in adoration of our queens who are willing to suffer. And she has, because there's times when we couldn't pay bills and children couldn't go on holidays. You know how expensive it is to take 9 children and your wife on holiday, and you're a full-time Black activist. But she endured all of that and never complained once, and always kept me on the right track. When I come home and I've got an ethical dilemma or a political dilemma, I'll often ask and talk to Jacqueline, and she'll give me that third eye perspective. And let me tell you about one of the weaknesses in Black men. They need Black women's good counsel, love, and advice in order to reach their higher vibration and come to their, I mean, I look at Black leaders around me, you know, and I see so few of them with our sisters that it worries me. So I'm just delighted that, you know, we're long in our marriage. We're going to recommit our vows at some point this year. And glory be, that will be another 35 years of long and happy marriage.
Brother Lee, thank you so much, brother. You took us down the yellow brick road. You took us on a memory, and we thank you, brother, because, you know, you've opened up different parts of yourself, and, you know, it takes a real strong, secure man to speak the way that you're speaking. All right, brother Lee, this tonight is dedicated to Windrush, my big brother.
Yeah.
And please, my king, what would you like to say about Windrush? Talk to us about what does Windrush mean to you? Talk to us about what are the lessons we should learn from the Windrush generation. Talk to us about the pioneers and how you see that first generation. Talk to us about how, you know, history as you know, is history guilty of in Britain, I'm talking about, of whitewashing the whole contribution that this generation's done. And in the second half, I won't mention the second half yet. Just talk to us, brother, and talk to us from your heart, brother. It's a fireside chat. We got lots of people on the platform. They want to hear from you, King.
Okay. Well, look, first of all, I wanted to raise you up because I've seen the work that you do, and I know that nobody does that unless their heart is fully sunk, committed to the issue of the advancement of our people. And you are a relentless warrior for that. The stuff that you're doing with those young leaders, oh my days, you know, if only we could scale that up so that we could have it in every city across the country, we would save so many of our young people. So I'd like to raise you up, brother, because, you know, and the thing is, you know, I know, and I won't embarrass you, but I know a lot of the work that you do is not known to the public and will never be known to the public because it's not done for that reason. And I have to hail you up as one of the most honest, courageous, consistent and ethical leaders in our community. And I'm delighted to be in your presence. And I think that doesn't get said off enough. So I wanted to say that. You're an exemplar of excellence in action, my brother. That's what you are.
That means a lot to you.
In relation to Windrush, what can I say?
Teach.
I think that look, One of the key things I will say to black leadership, people ask me, Lee, you're in the public eye. How do you withstand the slings and arrows of malicious discontent and trying to undermine you and so on and so forth? And I give them one simple answer. I'm a global African who stands on 10,000 years of African culture.
Teach.
Of whom should I be afraid? I stand, and come from a people who established precision mathematics beyond which computers can't compete today, nor understand how our constructions were built. Founded modern medicine, mapped the stars before, people in Europe were looking beyond the roof of their caves. Created artworks such that many of them still reside in the basement of the British library, having been stolen from our peoples. Such is their beauty, elegance, and wealth. So cultural knowledge is my superpower. That's the message that I want to give of why Windrush is so important. If you have a grasp and you make it your duty to understand your culture, you can relativize what is happening to you. You can recognize the patterns in society. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything has happened at some point in history, at some point in the world, somewhere. And looking at history can provide you with that pattern map. So when you see the cycle repeating itself, albeit 30, 40 years later, you can recognize we've seen this before. And this is the power, the beauty of studying one's own culture, and the in-depth extent to which our community is aware of its culture. It's not a matter of being taught in their schools. I don't trust and have any confidence in teachers from Norfolk who studied Black history at university coming and teaching my child history, my history. And as a father of 9, I took the opportunity always to be a school governor of every school I sent my child to.
Come on.
And the other thing that I did is I'm responsible, my wife and I are responsible for the transmission of culture and tradition to our children. That is the primary responsibility of parents, to provide the cultural history, the empathy, the loving, the caring, the support and the welfare for their children, so that they can avoid the mistakes that we've made in the past. This is the value of history and culture. And anybody who wishes to step in that leadership space has to address that. The Windrush generation, you've got to think that this is a group of people who are coming here in 1948. This country is resembling parts of Ukraine today at the time. Yeah, the back of the country is broken after the Second World War.
Come on.
We're talking about people from the Caribbean, the West Indies, and right at the Commonwealth, who went to Germany to fight fascists, who shot Hitler's SS soldiers, an army, who were on the battlefield in the fight against fascism and supremacism, and then were demobbed, went back to the Caribbean. This country, begging for labor because it lost so many young men and women in the war, actually sent advertising vans to Barbados and Jamaica saying, your mother country needs you. And they came over here in their thousands. And that Windrush culture, that Windrush generation was almost exemplar, because when they came here, times were tough. You couldn't just walk from any place you fancied in this country. You got into the wrong area at the wrong time, you're putting your life and yourself in danger. And the extent to which that initial community came together, organized themselves, created partner, the means of saving money in order to purchase properties. I noticed maybe said Ken Livingstone gave her grant for her first house. And of course, I was deputy mayor under Ken Livingstone for 8 years. And part of one of the my fondest memories, as well as the Mandela statue, is providing the money for the Black Cultural Archives to open in Windrush Square way back then. But this Windrush history, it's one of direct struggle as soon as we come here with the no blacks, no Irish, no dogs attitude. It's one where communities have to stick together because they're usually encircled and encamped by hostile whites. This is a form of apartheid where you couldn't just walk into any pub or any cafe or jump on any bus in any area. None of that kind of freedom. You had to think very carefully where you're going and how you're going to get there and how you're going to get back. And this is the kind of environment that they met when they came here. Not universally, because, there's some British people out there, as you and I know, they're very nice and genuine people. But back in those days, the hostility was overt, and the teddy boys and so on terrorized our communities. So much so that, there was racial riots in Nottingham in 1958. And I know people who are still alive to this day in Nottingham who were there in 1958 and witnessed the brutality. That same year, Kelso Cochrane died as a consequence of racist attack in Notting Hill. And that's why Notting Hill Carnival was born as a means of a response to that racist attack and to keep people together. People like Claudia Jones, who was, the political propagandist mastermind of the Black Power movement, who, was the intellectual lead, who wrote for the Caribbean Times, who published, political analysis of why Black people were under oppression here in the United Kingdom. All of this is born from the Windrush generation. When I worked at the Mangrove on All Saints Road, and people may know of it because of the Small Axe series, but Frank Critchlow, who founded the Mangrove, in those early 50s, these were people who, when the police used to leave to go on their rounds in their black Mariah vans, these are people who would follow them in their own vans to make sure they weren't harassing Black people. And people think about, the Windrush generation, they're old, they're fuddy-duddy. We're talking about some of the most militant, radical brothers and sisters you've ever met. These are people who are coming from islands who had to literally fight for their independence, sometimes, with revolutionary force to achieve their independence. And then they come to England and face that. That was never going to last as a sustainable situation. So the Windrush generation had some of the most fantastic pioneers, both in terms of Black self-organization, both in terms of economic development. I think they're the highest level of property owning generation in our history since we came here, and also in relation to fighting racism in the schools and in the police service. They were the ones, once they were convinced their children were being brutally abused, joined the movement led by young people in those early 70s against police brutalities. And of course, we all know what happened in 76 uprisings, in 81 uprisings, in 86 uprisings, in the 1996. These were all, products of a Windrush generation. But let me tell you something else. For a people of such small numerical minority in this country, way back then, we're a cultural superpower in this country. Everybody wants to be like us. In fact, I'm walking down the street sometimes and, you got kids with hoods up from behind and they're speaking a language that if I didn't get in front of them and see they were white kids, I think they were Black kids. Dominate the catwalk, dominate the sports field, dominate the art, expression, music, and so on. And it's funny, isn't it? In the UK, we've had to struggle a great deal to create a business sector. But in America, Jamaicans were castigated by African Americans who said, you're just like the Koreans. You're coming over here and opening businesses. And we don't like that. Right? So Jamaicans could succeed in business in America, but they couldn't succeed in business in the UK. And that was no accident. And that's the reason why, we've, as a community, we've done so well on the sports field. Because on the sports field, the rules are clear. There's no hidden rules. Everybody can see what's going on. When the referee gets it wrong, the crowd rises up immediately. Yeah. In fact, so important are these rules, they bring VR to go back and check to make sure he's got the decision right. And where black people are given an opportunity where equality applies, excellence always shines.
Excellence. Teach, Brother Lee.
Excellence always shines. And it's no accident that when the rules are clear and there's no prejudice involved and only talent is the criteria, we compete with the best with anybody in the whole world. And it's a remarkable testimony to a people whose culture was robbed, whose people who were impoverished, right, that they can become the leading cultural style setters, right, of youth and contemporary culture from here to Japan, to Brazil, to Alaska, wherever you name it, right? People are loving our culture. People are loving our music. People are loving our art and industry. And in elsewhere in the world and on the African continent as well, we're seeing the kind of economic growth from some countries that Europe and Britain would die for if they could achieve that right now. And so the world is opening up. And as global Africans here, you can't go back to Africa not knowing your culture. People will look at you as if you're ignorant and just like, some tourist from some European country. You've got to go there informed. Who was Nkrumah? Who was Samora Machel? Who was Mandela? Who was Ramaphosa? Who were all of these heroes that contributed to development? So I cannot praise enough the Windrush generation, because studying what happens to them will allow young people to recognize the same patterns that were applied to them in the early days about, they're all coming over here, they're stealing our jobs, they're stealing our women, they're pimps, they're drug addicts. That was the stereotype that met the Windrush pioneers very early on. And these were God-fearing, law-abiding people. And today we have the same discrimination where people going about their lawful business.
Brother Lee, apologies, because brother, you're hitting some serious rolling points right now. I'm not just saying it, bro. I mean, since you've been talking, the chat room, it just hasn't stopped. But you just mentioned a point there, brother, and I'd like your views, because you mentioned about what's been, what was the political state when they came over, and then you compared it to what's going on today. So do you remember this famous?
Oh man, we must be mad, literally mad, as a nation, to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents. It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre.
Mr. Powell. Lee, is there any difference between what Enoch Powell said 30, 40, 50 years ago and the political state now?
Nah, you're not wanted. We're not wanted in this country, and I don't want anybody to be under illusion. I know that some people got very excited about the Queen's Jubilee and it was all very exciting and so on. Let me tell you something. Your presence is tolerated in this country. When they say this is the most tolerant country in the world, you know what you tolerate? You tolerate a virus. You tolerate something you don't like. You tolerate an itch. You tolerate a pain. You don't tolerate pleasure. You don't tolerate friendship. You don't tolerate love, right? But we're tolerated. And I think that what you find that today, Boris Johnson is just a comedic Enoch Powell with blonde hair and blue eyes. He's no different in his capacity. Let's think about it, okay? Windrush scandal, that you're deporting people who are British citizens after you conspired to destroy the evidence that proved they were British citizens by burning their landing cards, you then deport them and their children because you say they're not British. That is a degree of racist hostility that is unprecedented. Now the Home Secretary has just given herself the power that she can take your citizenship away from you, and you have no judicial rights of appeal or to challenge in court. Now we see, plane loads of people being shipped off to Rwanda as they seek to export their immigration problem by exploiting African countries. So the comparables between what was happening then and what was happening now are stark. And let me just summarize by saying this. As a student of history, and I'm not a historian, right? But as a student of history, what we know is when European economies go down, racism goes up.
Woo!
Right?
Say that again.
Always happens. When European economies go down, racism always goes up, because it's in the vested interest of the very rich and wealthy to keep this country divided. They don't want neighbor working with neighbor. They want neighbor against neighbor so that they can keep everything off balance and off key. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Stephen Lawrence died in 93. When was that? That was the period of the last mini recession. Yeah. Kelso Cochrane, 1958. Again, an economic recession. Yeah. Early 2000s, in the 2008 crash, we saw 2,000% increase in racist attacks. Just after Brexit, in the last 2 years, we've seen it increase by 163% of racist attacks. So, my view is that you have to be a student of history. Windrush is so important so that you can understand and identify the trends in history, that if you see them on your skyline, you'll be able to recognize the nature of the threat. And that's why history is so important.
Beautiful, beautiful, my king, beautiful. So what would you say then, brother? I mean, we just want to honor, and I'm praying that, brothers and sisters, you've got your grandparents or your mom or your dad or your uncle or your granddad in the room with you, brothers and sisters, because Lee Jasper, we're going through the Windrush right now. We're going through the Windrush. So Lee, when you think back to the days now, because you touched on it already, but what would you say about the unity, not just the physical unity, but the economical unity in that first Windrush generation? You spoke about the partner system, the fact that they were sending money back to Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, and bring back their loved ones and their children. What can we learn from that, brother? And have we lost it?
I'll tell you what we can learn from history is that Marcus Garvey was 100% right. That a people without economic independence, a people who lack self-sufficiency, right, have no innate dignity or respect to be gained from others, nor do they offer it to themselves. Yeah? And I can tell you that the most powerful I've ever been is when I sit in front of white people talking about an issue of racism, and I tell them, I don't need your money to do this. Whatever it is I'm going to do. Because they're not used to that kind of black person. They're used to people who say, how can I get the money? We launched a project where we told the police and the council, actually, we don't need your money. Thank you very much. The next day, a senior politician rang me up and said, Lee, we really want to back this thing. and I said to him, I'm sorry, it's not up for negotiation. We just don't want your money. Why? Because I know when I go into the community and I tell them young people, we funded this, yeah, they have more respect. The project and our intervention is much more sustainable. So part of the lessons we learned from the Windrush is that coming together, they didn't just help to buy each other's houses. what used to happen is Mr. Smith, Mr. Brown, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Smith all used to put some money in a pot every week. And when they got to a certain level that they could afford a house, the first one would buy a house. And then they'd keep on putting money in during the following 2 or 3 years. And then the second one would buy a house. And so it went on until all 4 had bought houses. And you played a clip, didn't you, of Enoch Powell early on. And one of the most greatest things I did recently is witness that a group of Afro-Caribbean business people in Wolverhampton bought his constituency office and turned it into a Caribbean community centre. So in the very place where Enoch Powell conspired with his white supremacist bullshit, right? Pardon my French, children.
Teach!
Right now, Domino's, Jerk Chicken, and Bob Marley and Peter Tosh are playing in the very ground that he stood.
God. Can you imagine the irony behind that, brother? But brother, can I just add on that, my big brother? That you mentioned 2, as you spoke, 2 things came into my mind as you spoke on that, brother. And number 1 was, when you don't need money from the people that normally are the ones that give you the money to, we go there, hat in our hands and please can I have more, sir. When we first started the Young Leaders Academy in Westside, Young Leaders Academy, we specifically started making sure we were not asking any local authority, any government, any sponsorship, any lottery. We made sure if we couldn't do it ourselves as Black men and as Black women, then we don't deserve to have it in the first place.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, we deserved funding, but we said that is not going to be the foundation. That is not going to be whether we start or not, because if our children are dying due to the lack of their knowledge, and we want to sit down and just beg people for money, that's why I'm so proud, Brother Lee, that, on this platform, brothers and sisters donate to us. It's like their national insurance. They see it as their national insurance. They just give us a little bit of what they can afford.
Yeah.
And with that, we can run with it, even though we know that what funding is deserved. But brother, that's the first and second thing, Brother Lee, and I'm just loving this chat with you, big brother, is that I remember back in the day, Brother Lee, I don't know about yourself, but I was in East London. And many of us, we used to laugh at the so-called Pakistanis and the Indians that drove around in their little Datsuns. Yeah, remember they were known for their little Datsun cars. And we would laugh and we see 10 men coming out of a little Datsun. Yeah, and they're all living in one little house. We used to laugh. But brother, give it 10 years down the road, we stopped laughing. Because that little Pakistani family that we were having time to laugh at, and they were getting Paki bashed and what have you, okay? They were owning all the corner shops. Before we knew it, they were owning all of the cash and carries. Before we knew it, they were now not buying houses, yeah? They were building their own houses. Left, right, and center. Now the whole situation's changed. So whilst we're laughing at those, in a few years' time, they may be laughing at us based on our own lack of unity today. Sorry, Brother Lee, but I think
you know what? I don't think I'm not pessimistic, because what I see amongst the young generation these days is just a multitude of talent, a multitude of capacity, a multitude of intelligence and capacity. I speak to some young people, when I think about what I was like at their age. And
oh gosh,
brother, they are a million miles ahead.
Man's talking crypto.
Exactly.
About investing in gold. I know. Yeah, come on, kid.
Listen, and I have to say, you know what? With the technology and the tools that we have, all we need is the cultural, political, ideological belief that centers self-help and being a global African at the center of everything we do, and we cannot fail but to succeed. And if using these new technologies so that we can sell fridges in Kumasi, bicycles in Joburg, we can send, repaired TVs over to Sierra Leone. We can do international trade in a way that was inconceivable when in the Windrush days. And when you think back and It's a point that has been well made, is worth making again. But if Garvey can create a multi-million membership organization worldwide with no email, no internet, and nothing, no funding from these people, then how much more could we do today with the technology and the commitment? We're not a poor community. We need to stop buying things to impress people we don't know, and we're buying things we don't need. Why are you trying to keep up with the Joneses? Invest in your children's education. You know, your children's education should be the number one priority of your living, breathing every moment, to ensure that they get the education opportunities that they need. And the work that you're doing, brother, is just switching on lights in minds and families right across this country. I'll tell you, I used to go to, funny enough, talking about Windrush days, when I was a young kid, I used to go to Pan-Africanist Sunday school.
Wow.
So your parents would send you to, you know, Sunday school normal for black church. And then in the afternoon, they'd send you to, so you went from there in the afternoon to Pan-Africanist Sunday school. And that would give you a deep grounding in who King was, who Marcus Garvey was, who, you know, and the whole anti-colonial Walter Rodney, you know, Angela Davis, we'd get all that learning there. And we need to go back to that, brother. We need to go back to that so that our young people have the intellectual, historical, political analysis to understand that everything we're going through now is a pattern of repeat abuse and behavior that started way back when the first white man landed on the shores of Africa and said, yo, come with me. And it started from there, and all it's done is get more sophisticated than norms, but it is repeating itself. But if you're not a student of history, you may think everything that you see in front of you is new. You know,
yes.
You may think that, oh, that's the first time that's happened, or maybe it's a one-off. Or you may not understand the significance of it. I know black people who you know, voted for Brexit as if they thought that was a solution. They're thinking better of it now, but you know, that's where they were. But our thing is, if you don't understand the history, then it leads you to make real-time mistakes right here in the right now and present, and you go around in that Groundhog Day circle repeatedly.
Well, Brother Lee, I assume, like myself, that you're second generation in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lee, and I think we both are students of history, in a sense of we had that first generation that stood up and established themselves here in the UK. But what would you like to say, Brother Lee, because you've been at the front line of this, about the struggle of the second generation and the trials and tribulations that we've had to go through over the years? You mentioned about the fire, you mentioned about something, but what would you like to say to the brothers and sisters who may not be in depth in their knowledge in terms of the struggle of the second generation, and are we in a better place or in a worse place today?
Well, I think the two things. I think one is, look, when I was at school, secondary school, the teachers, I was born here, I speak English relatively well. Me and everybody who came from the Caribbean, we all spoke English. We were in the same class as Bangladeshis who'd been here for 2 minutes and couldn't speak any English. So why is it that you've got black kids who are English speaking in a class which is being taught rudimentary English? Yeah, such was the racism in the education system. The education, you know, the famous book, the education, the making of the education subnormal child, which is a classic text. You have to read, because that was in the 1950s, and it's still happening today in schools and academies.
Lee.
So these are I also think that, look, police racism is bad today, but it's nowhere near like it used to be back in those days for us. I remember being punched in the face, nearly knocked out. You know, they would just beat you, batter you, drag you in the back of a van, beat you some more, and they were a rule to themselves. They used to have little gollywog badges underneath their lapels like this. They show you the lapel like that, and you see a little gollywog badge, right? And that gollywog badge would tell you, right, they're part of the National Front, and you know that's a fascist organisation. And if you got caught out by these cats out there, you take a beating like hell. So we had to fight back. And don't forget, you know, we faced a charge called the sus charge. Many people will have heard of it. People won't understand what it meant. What it meant was a police officer could charge you with suspicion of committing a crime to people or property unknown.
Unknown.
So you were arrested on suspicion of committing a crime to people or property unknown. So you don't need no evidence. You just need that officer to say, he looked like he was about to commit a crime to people or property unknown, and you would go to jail for that. Yeah, and thousands of young black men went to jail for that, which is why you had the uprisings in the 70s bubbling up as we got that rootification education from Peter Tosh and, you know, the reggae Rasta revolution, came to the United Kingdom in big style. Then we had that kind of form of consciousness that we knew we had to fight back. And we did fight back, and we pushed them back, and we pushed them back all over the country. When this country went up in flames, 76 and then again in 81, people wouldn't really understand the scale of it. You know, the black community in Liverpool attacked the Merseyside Police Service airport because they were flying surveillance helicopters from their Merseyside airport over Moss Side. And Moss Side rang them and said, brothers, we need to bring that helicopter down. They went to the airport, and when it came back, they burned it down. They burned that helicopter down. People just don't realize, you know, the kind of fight we had back then. And we were able to change the law, and we were able to improve things. Have things improved these days? Look, history goes in cycles. And I think ultimately what we're looking at, what young people are looking at, and this is why young leaders are so important, we're looking at an existential crisis in relation to the global economy. Everybody can see we're going into recession and stagflation, as they call it. You know, we've got the effects of climate change. You know, that is another existential threat to humanity. And then we've got the political crisis, in which all of these 20th century institutions are looking tired, run down. People are losing patience with them. They're looking at the corruption. They're looking at the nepotism. They're looking at the discrimination, and they're seeing that the young people now are living 21st century connected lives, and yet we have to suffer these ancient institutions who are like a drag anchor on our progressive movement to the future. And it's the end of one epoch, and it's beginning of a new epoch. That new epoch is digital. That new epoch is AI. That new epoch is GTP3, artificial intelligence. That new epoch is a connected world where it becomes a village, where it's very easy to talk to your cousin in Kumasi, or you know, your granny in St. Elizabeth. And it's free on WhatsApp. And so we've got the potential to move human history forward in a way that has never been possible in the past. But like any paradigm change and any epoch change, it's painful when you go through it.
Yeah.
Any birth is painful. And when something is dying, the new thing is being born, you'll see the old guard desperately trying to hold on to power. Look at the Prime Minister currently, you know, caught out, flat out lying. He's trying to do a Donald Trump and, you know, deny the reality that we can all see. And the more the crisis goes on, the more desperately they'll be hanging on to power. That's why a student of history is very important, because you may not recognize the old order is dying. And if you don't recognize it's dying, then you will not position yourself to take advantage in the crisis, because every crisis produces millionaires, inventors. The nature of the crisis, what did they say? Crisis is the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of invention. You will know when we were denied access to finances in the 50s and 60s under Windrush, we didn't cry about it and say they're racist. We opened a partner and created an alternative economic system.
Absolutely.
When they wouldn't teaching our kids in school, we didn't cry about it. We opened supplementary schools so that we could teach our kids what they needed to know in relation to those things. When somebody needed an investment for a business, we didn't go to the bank because we could never get that loan. People came together to invest in that brother and sister and to rise them up on his feet. And what we find, therefore, today is that the solution and the strategy to the crisis that confronts us is to hunker down together, to invest in each other, to promote each other, to value our leadership, to invest in our own economics and our own political leaders. And if we do that for this next generation, then they will be the generation that will truly, I think, deliver what I think is the historic destiny of Black people in this country, to make a contribution similar to that of the civil rights movement of the African Americans in the 60s, in bringing together the global African diaspora in a way that new technology allows us, and wise leadership and a study of history can pattern and show us a critical path forward.
Lick shot, Jah Rastafari, my king. Brother Lee, what have you got for dinner today, big man? You're feeding. And brother, no joke, brother. This is just so brilliant. I mean, the chat room has not stopped clicking. Brother Lee, you started off this answer by going into the education system and how they literally made us subnormal in our approach. And you mentioned the TV program. Yeah. You know, Lee, you don't understand how God is disguising your words, my big brother, because on the platform, we've got a brother called Noel, who's literally the BBC recently done a program on the subnormal, where they categorize us. Believe it or not, this was one of the brothers that was on the show. Brother Noel, are you there?
Yeah, man, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, look, what a small world, man.
You got me?
Yeah, we can hear you, brother. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, man, loud and clear, loud and clear.
What did you think of Brother Lee Jasper just then when he just went into the very same program? What are you doing right now? Because the fight is still continuing about this.
Yeah, things are starting to move now. What probably Jasper was saying, been through it, been on documentary. We've got a petition going now on a government website. I've got a meeting with Kim Johnson, a Labour MP, newly elected. Unfortunately, David Lammy said he couldn't help me because of the war in Ukraine, but he's given me this contact. The solicitors are on it, and we're trying to bring people together because they want to invite us into Parliament to try and debate this. That's what the petition's about. So the things are happening now. Things are moving. It's been a bit slow, but things are making progress now. But we have to be the driving force behind this. Otherwise, we won't get no justice. We're pushing for measures to be put in place, compensation schemes to be set up to help the children that was been so affected. Our lives have been literally destroyed. You destroy the child, the mind of a child, you destroy the man. And I've seen this. I also suffer with sickle cell. School was a nightmare for me. Really difficult, really hard. I've had to re-educate myself. You know, I used to work for the NHS, biomedical engineer. I complained about racism. They sacked me on the spot, called it redundancy. All this stuff I've had to deal with. So this is what, Carol, sorry.
But no, brother, no, man. You know, I'm feeling you, King. And I was saying, as Lee Jasper just touched it, very quickly, brother, no, very quickly, because obviously people may not know who you are. I obviously know who you are, and I know you was on the BBC show.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, brother, you know, because I know you was one of the victims of what Brother Lee was speaking about. In a very quick nutshell, brother, you know, what happened to you?
Well, to me, at the age of 6, I had to go to hospital to have my teeth taken out. I was 4. I had a reaction to the gas. They said I had this condition called sickle cell. But for my parents having 9 children, there was a new to them. The thought, hang on, this is not right. How could you go to hospital health and come out sick? And because of that, I went through school, infants normally. When I got to the age of 6, somebody came to the house and we got a school for him to go to. They said to my mum that I'm done. So my mum thinks to herself, he's not done, something wrong with him. School sort it out. But what the guy was alluding to, he was sending him to a school for subnormal children. We had no curriculum, no education.
Wow.
No, and the teacher said, well, they said there's a matron there. So when I was sick, they didn't know what was wrong with me. I had a crisis after going swimming. I had to call my parents. When I was 12, I got racially and physically abused. My parents got involved. They tried to get me out of there, but things didn't work. I got bullied for the next 4 years until I left school. So that's what happened to. This has happened to thousands of black kids, with or without sickle cell. The test they gave them, once they sat the test, was rigged against them. They were conforming to some white supremacy pseudo language, pseudo code, not pseudo. They're just making this stuff up, right? That we were not subnormal.
And that's why, you know what? That's why I think that the next generation, we have got to establish. I made a deal when I was in the mayor's office with Morehouse University, the University of Dr. King in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was raising that before Ken lost that election. And they said, if I put £3 million on the table, they'll put $3 million and we'll open a campus in London. At the end of the day, in relation to the solution to education, I think we've got to have our own schools. These are not black schools in the sense that white people would characterize them as only letting black youths in. When you go to Morehouse, you see people from all over the world. Why? Because it's an excellent university, but its focus is on the ethical, pedagogical, and spiritual and political welfare of black people, black men specifically. But Chinese students are there. A third of their students are international students because they know that the education is quality. So I think, you know, I would love to see, brother, and, you know, before I retire, open an African Academy in London. And, you know, I don't think we need anybody's money but our own to make that happen. And if we were to stop buying the things we didn't need to impress people we don't know, for 1 year, I could open that university, you could open that university, and we could be a major solution to a problem.
Brother Lee, please, I'm not even patronizing you. For the people at the back, say that one more time.
We fund our own schools and we provide the solution to our problem for this next generation of youth. It is inconceivable that the Hindu have their own schools, the Muslim has his own schools, the Jewish man will have his own schools, the Christian will have their own schools. How the hell, the most fundamental representation of our value in our children is our commitment to fund their education. And we need our own African academies. Do you know that a white man opened a school for black kids in London in the late 17th century called Thomas Clarkson? That African Academy building is still standing today on Clapham Common. He opened that African Academy to train Africans who were freed from slavery to prepare for governance in Sierra Leone and Liberia. I'll tell you an interesting story about that. So it takes a white man to open an African Academy in Clapham Common in the 17th century. And today we're like frightened to do that very same thing for our own children. I don't understand the psychology, but you can look it up. Look African Academy and look at Thomas Clarkson. I see people asking, Thomas Clarkson. To me, he's the equivalent John Brown. He died for black people. You know, he spent decades campaigning against slavery. And the African Academy is still a building up there, still on Clapham Common today. So, you know, for us, education is the key. And God willing, now we have cryptocurrency. Now we have an ability to raise funds. If we can come together and put that $5 million on the table, we will get Morehouse in London.
Brother Lee, come on, my king. Listen, Brother Lee, before, look, Brother Lee. I want to emphasize what Brother Lee's just been talking about, brothers and sisters. One of the things, once you understand the nature of being African and a global African, one thing we appreciate, the number one force of Africans and Africa is the power and the energy of love. It doesn't matter what's happened to us. We love it. We will love our enemies. We'll love our friends. We love everyone. Yeah. Love has always been the key. And even though we know in history, remember we talking about Windrush today, it was the British Empire that went into Africa, enslaved us with the royal consent. But yet, even knowing that, this will be our response when the royal family or the Queen comes to us in the Caribbean. And notice they show a monkey before this news clip. Yeah.
Thousands of Jamaicans give a warm welcome to Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh when they visit the island's old capital, Spanish Town. So that all the great crowd may see them, the royal visitors take their places by a statue of Rodney, whose naval victories rid Jamaica of the threat of French invasion in the late 18th century. The Queen, who is the guest of the Governor, Sir Hugh Foote, during her stay, visits Sabina Park, where 35,000 schoolchildren wait to welcome her. Their eyes shine with excitement. Their Queen has come from a far-off land to see them. It is a moment they will cherish all their lives.
My God, 35,000 children come to see whose Queen? Their Queen.
Exactly.
And it's something they will never forget for the rest of their lives. Knowing that, hold a minute, but hold on. Why am I saying this? And Lee, check this out, Lee. Check this out, Lee. Just backing up what you're saying. Because what we don't appreciate was this, brothers and sisters.
They knew all the kings and queens going back to Henry VIII and their forefathers. The knowledge we were taught was all about England. Every Jamaican knew wherever factories in Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, and so forth. We knew, and Bristol, we knew all about England. We go to the theatre, we stand to attention, sang God Save the Queen. We had all the national holidays, we pay respect to royalty. And we knew nothing. We didn't have a national flag. Naturally, the Jamaica and the West Indies were not independent countries. And our loyalty to the crown was solid. There's nothing else. We're British. The language is British. We taught all the mannerism of the English society without realizing that we are not really British citizens. We were British subjects. The people of Jamaica did not realize there was a difference between being citizens and subjects.
So you see what Baba Lee's saying? If you capture the children's education,
Right.
Baba Lee, come on, big brother. That's what we're talking about.
And you know something. You know, when we talk about this Windrush generation, we say we came to Britain. I just want to be clear here. We didn't come to Britain. Britain came to us.
They came to us.
Britain came to us.
Begged us, brother. Done a tour.
So, you know, this notion that somehow we uprooted and came here. No, you came to us. The reason we are here is because you were there. And people have to remember that in conceptualizing yourself as a part of global Africa. We didn't come to the West. The West came to us. And it's an important distinction.
Wow. Brothers and sisters, this has been Lee Jasper. We warned you that the journey was going to be hot tonight. That's why I love bringing this. Anytime I call this brother Lee, have you got, it doesn't even, I'm on the show. Brother Lee, I'm telling you, we thank you so much for tonight, my king. We know that we could have gone on for hours and hours of the chat line. And I knew every time you come on the show, brother, it's a blow up. It's an absolute blow up, brother. We love your energy, we love your spirit, and the wisdom and the power that comes out. Brother Lee, before we finish, and brothers and sisters, you know, Brother Lee, on this platform, I don't just do this show, Brother Lee. Sister Samira doesn't just do this show, and the whole team behind the scenes. We don't just do this show so that every single Tuesday we could just sit down, go down memory lane, cuss two people, massage each other's egos with false history. Brother Lee, we are really all about change on this platform. We you know, the race is not to the swift, but it's for those who endure. So when you spoke about, come on, let's stand up and build our own African Academy. Believe me, Lee, these are, you're speaking into some of the goals and ambitions that we've got planned down the line. Obviously, we don't speak and we don't show everything we're doing at all. But Lee, you know, this is a platform of change. This ain't a platform just of a weekly show. There are many things that's happening, and many people that have come onto this platform, and we've affected real lives in real time. And in doing it, Brother Lee, there is an attack which is natural. Yeah. Many we're getting emails left, right, and center that saying that people can't get onto the platform now. You know, they're hitting the link, they're not getting through. They're not, you know, they're literally doing a whole lot of stuff. I'm not going to go into it right now. People are getting that emails, but that's all good. That's all good, Brother Lee, because it means that we are doing something right.
That's right.
And it's a new day. It's a new day. Sister Samara, are you there, my queen?
I'm always here, King. I'm always here.
Who are we speaking to today? Who are we on the line with today?
What do you mean, who are we on the line with? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
This morning, who were we on the line with?
Oh goodness. Yes, so family, first of all, can I just say, drop your fives for Brother Lee Jasper.
Come on.
Beavering away, taking notes, responding to some of the queries. Just absolutely fantastic. If I can just also, okay, I'll read out comments afterwards, but very, very powerful sharing, brother. Family, just so that you know, we spent just shy of 1 hour with Zoom today. And when I say just shy of 1 hour, brother, and no, I am not exaggerating.
Absolutely.
And we had to escalate the situation to senior management. So just so that you know, we are taking it very, very seriously. The attack and onslaught on the platform or against the platform. And imminently, we should be able to get a positive resolution after we did done with them this morning.
So brothers and sisters, please don't give up. I know certain weeks you're hitting the platform link and you just can't get through. That is the old games that they used to play back in the day to stop us from uniting. And, you know, as Black people, many times we just give up. Oh, you know what? Can't get on anymore. I'm going to go about my own business. It's a new day. It's a new day. It's a new day.
And to be honest, we've been chasing this for weeks, by the way. So brothers and sisters, understand that it wasn't just today that we just decided, oh, let's see what we can do. No, this has been weeks. And hence, my tone is the way in which it is. And we were very courteous because, you know, as kings and queens, we are all about decorum. Equally, you must be authoritative and make them understand. I'm going to revert back to English. That this is a situation that must be dealt with and dealt with now. And so, so yes, we had some serious words. But please, as Brother Andrew has said, if you know of anyone who has been struggling, sorry, my camera's going to be funny, who has been struggling to come onto the platform, insist that they don't give up. Insist and make this all of our responsibility that each one must reach one. So we must be sharing the link with everyone in our network and in our atmosphere, so to speak, and double check to see who's on, you know, in our WhatsApp groups, in our individual WhatsApp communication or Telegram or Signal. Just pick up the phone. Even today, we were receiving a couple of calls just to make sure that people were able to get on. So it's for all of us collectively to take ownership as though, because this is our show, as though you are the person behind the hidden truth. Take that level of ownership to make sure that every single person is able to get on. And if you know someone's having any trouble, then please let us know. But still, they've got to be persistent, because that's what they're not expecting. They're not expecting us to be persistent. They're expecting us to just say, oh, you know, I'm going to give up. I can't get on for one reason or another. It's tech. No, this is bigger than tech. And we need to make sure that we recognize that this is a movement led by all of us together. So keep letting us know. And trust me on this, we will be following up with management to make sure that this is rectified.
Thank you so much, my sister. And as you know, I didn't have to say anything. I just said Samira on them. Just set her on them, and they soon have to come back. Brother Lee, before Samira reads out some of the comments, okay, Brother Lee, very quickly, my king.
Yeah.
I believe that you've had another success defending and working with one of our community members.
Yeah.
I've forgotten the sister's name, but she was viciously attacked for a number of years by our own workforce that she worked for, the Metropolitan Police. And she was mocked and vilified on all news programs in terms of the TV, so in media, I should say, in terms of TV, radio, and newspapers. But apparently she's got justice now. And I believe that you're one of the key people that was there supporting her. Could you just very briefly, brother, just explain to the platform the situation?
Yeah, consummate black woman professional in the Metropolitan Police. Look, I didn't agree with everything that she stood for, but what I liked about her is her honesty and integrity. And even if I disagree with you, if you're honest, at least you can have a sensible discussion, and you can rely on people's word. Here was a woman who rose to the top chief superintendent level. She was the poster girl for the Metropolitan Police Service, everything from Prime Minister to the Queen. She'd be everywhere. She was their key liaison just after the Grenfell fire, where the Grenfell fire victims actually wrote to the Metropolitan Police Commission and said, this is the finest officer we ever had the pleasure of meeting. Such was her ability with the community to work with them. I'd known her for years. I knew her when she was just a PC out in Nottingham. Robin Williams rose to the top of the ranks. She's then falsely accused of an offence for which she's denigrated, traduced. And let me say that this is happening to far too many black women in my estimation. And I don't see enough black men standing up and pointing this out. There is a full-scale attack on black women and young girls, from Child Q to Diane Abbott to Robin Williams and others that I could speak of. Any black women and black leadership in the black leadership spaces coming under attack. She did. She was faced with the most appalling charges of saying that she had an image on her phone, which was a pornographic image, which she hadn't seen, and technology proved she hadn't opened it. Somebody had sent it to her to say, oh, look at this horrible thing. And the police legislation says that if you get stuff like that on your phone, you should report it. Now, bear in mind, this woman's got a 30-year unblemished career, faces this charge, they discipline her, they sack her, they put her on a child sex offence register, they denigrate her life, and subsequently she's been able to come back and fight and win in the courts, fight an appeal, overturn that judgment. And, you know, today, brother, they had to, you know, well, not today, but this, as recently, right, they've had to accept her back into work. You know, she won absolutely everything all the way, and they've had to accept her. And you know what? You can imagine being subject to that sort of charge. That's not a charge you can easily get rid of. So I'm in tremendous admiration for her commitment, her indefatigability, you know, her strength under such enormously difficult times. I just got to raise my hat off to her and all of those who supported her, of which I was one, but you know, only one amongst many others. So we give victories, we give praise and thanks for the good victories that we get when justice is seen to be done.
And Brother Lee, isn't it strange that if you didn't post it, Brother Lee, I'll be honest with you, many of us would have known.
Yeah.
You know, they were ready and quick to smear her name all over the news, all over the papers and everything, but no one speaks about the fact that, oh, she literally cleared her name.
That's right.
She soon got back. I mean, I can't believe she actually wants to work back for that same force that treated her that, but that's not my, not my, you know, my.
But she wanted to make a point.
Yes, I hear you.
She's that type of black woman.
Yes.
You're not going to beat me. I'm going to put my uniform. I'm going to walk straight back in there, right? And I'm going to prove you all down. Yeah. So
I hear you, brother. Brother Lee, you've been phenomenal today. Sister Samira, just I'll ask you just to read out some of the comments. But Brother Lee, before she does that, can you just allow everyone to know what you're going into now and how could they contact you? How can they find out more about you? If you got, I know there's a whole range of things you're doing. Just let us know more about what you're doing and how they can make contact with you, brother.
Currently, I'm engaged in an international discussion between the African diaspora to create an international global African Justice Council. This will be made up of leading figures from right across the world. Brazil, Aboriginal, Australia often gets forgotten in the diaspora, Europe, America, and the continent themselves, as well as Colombia and other Latin American countries. So that's a very exciting thing where we want to put a platform together to have powerful, unified, global African Council that can point out and comment on the injustice faced by both the continent and Africans around the world. The other thing I'm involved in is in relation to developing a series of new technologies in relation to Black activism. So what we're looking at is how can we pull together a suite of applications that aid and empower conscious Black people to engage, network, do business, and so on. So that's going on, and we'll come back to people in relation to that. I also run in a political masterclass for young leaders. This is an intensive, soul sapping exercise that not everybody survives. But if you're going to go into the Black leadership space, I think it's essential that you learn how to manage that Blackness in a hostile environment and what you need to do. So that's another important thing. All my contact details are in the chat. I can see there that Sister Samira has kindly put all the Instagram and WhatsApp and so on there, so people can contact me. If you want your young person, if you've got a young person and you think that they are in the exceptional leadership category, then the political masterclasses are for you. I'm also developing a leadership roundtable because I want people like Robin and other sisters who walk through the fire to come to a round table and talk about what it takes to really challenge racism as a ethical Black leader. What were the trials and tribulations and how did we succeed? So we're doing that leadership roundtable. I'm chair of the Alliance of Police Accountability, a 2-year consultation project with Black communities, which is asking them 2 questions. One is, what policing do you want for the 21st century? Everybody talks about what the Black community wants in policing. Nobody's actually done the work of going into the communities and asking them. The second question is, what is our responsibility to tackling violence in our community? Here, I'm not just talking about teenage violence. Alas, we have too many of our Black sisters who face domestic violence, too many of our young girls who face sexual violence, too many of our teenagers who are facing knife crime. And we want to say to ourselves, as a community, what is our responsibility for tackling this? Not what the police can do, not what the schools can do, not what anybody else can do, what we can do together on this issue. And there's lots more, but that'll suffice for now. And you can always look me up on the social media. So, but look, it's been a delight to be here. I'm so honored and humbled at some of the comments I'm seeing. You know, I'm a servant leader. I'm still a student myself. I'm learning, but, you know, I'm tremendously inspired by the quality, talent in our community, amongst our young people, and among people like Andrew and his team, who make such a unique contribution to keeping hope alive and keeping us focused on the right direction.
I'm so glad you've seen the chat line. Sister Smith normally just digs out a few of them that she'd like to share with you, brother.
So absolutely, Sister Elaine Rose has said, and everyone has echoed, or at least a lot of our brothers and sisters have echoed, that you, Brother Lee, need to write a book on parenting.
Yeah, I think I might do that.
So quite a number of people have said that. And also when you were speaking about the sus laws, that it was quite interesting, because when I was speaking about Roland and saying if it had been the reverse, is it joint enterprise is
Yes.
what they are getting a lot of our young people on. And so I think there was someone who said joint venture, but I think they meant joint enterprise.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Is something that a number of people can actually relate to, as well as the section 60 stop and search. So a number of people were commenting on that and just saying that what you're talking about, when we're looking at the Windrush generation, also your generation, that you had to overcome, what the things that you had to overcome with the National Front BNP is actually, as you said, repeating itself as we speak today. So many people have been identifying with everything that you've said. Everyone wants you back. So they want to know when you're back. For those of you who are asking with regards to Brother Lee and in terms of his details, I've been popping them in the chat. So please look, it's been put in the chat numerous times. But if you do want information on the political masterclass, please just email Brother lee-jasper@live.com, and then you're able to connect with yourself, brother. Is that the best thing to do?
Absolutely. And brother, I'd really like to come along to your 9th of July event. I know it's not a public event,
absolutely,
but I consider
brother.
myself family. So if I could get in, I'd love to come along.
Oh, brother, you are definitely there, brother. I'll be pulling your hair, brother, right down to the event, brother. So 100%, brother, because I was saying this, this is not a public event. This is for those who are in the know and for those who have been supporting us. When we're ready to go public, people ain't going to believe what they're going to see. So
Nice.
Thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, this has been Lee Jasper. Come on, man. I'm going to say Ja.
Rastafari.
Oh, Lee, you should have said that. Now they know it now. Ja, put it in the chat room, man. Finish off that sentence. Ja, come on, man. This has been the Hidden Truth Show.
We're just out in sunny Portugal. I'm wanting to say, Guan Papa G.
So you don't know every single time, brothers and sisters. We've had the magnificent Black King. I am who I am. He didn't play. He didn't mince his words around today, brothers and sisters. We had the phenomenal Lee Jasper. We know, inshallah, we'll be bringing him back again. We've had the fantastic Sister Sandra of the Windrush Generation Legacy Association. And I wish I had a picture of Sister Samira's gran, because as Lee's a big man, Sandra's a big woman, she's done her stuff, she's got an acclaim. But I think the secret weapon tonight has to be Gran. Had to be Gran, brothers and sisters. Amazing.
I actually have a picture of my gran.
I wish I had a picture of your gran. Then we went international tonight with our international guests, who I just wanted just to feature. But we're looking to do a bigger show with the sister, because we want to go into more detail. Because, brothers and sisters, we talk about the pioneers. We've got living pioneers today. Black girl in Dubai, amazing. Today she could pick up a briefcase and just go about her business